Good morning. Today we are going to be moving into Unit 7 and we are back to working with fractions. So for our math message today, it says, talk with a partner about how the area model shown above represents the problem 28 times 6. Then work with your partner to draw an area model that represents 4 2/3 times 7. I know you don't have a partner with you right now, but just make an attempt to do both of those things. I would pause the video, and then once you've done that, press play again. So, you could use the model to find the product of 28 times 6. The area of the left side of the model would have been 20 times 6. So I'll draw that out. And we know that 20 times 6 equals 120. So that would have been the area for this section right here. Because we have the 20 here and the 6 here, we multiply those and get 120. Then we could have done the right side of the rectangle, which is 8 times 6. 8 times 6 equals 48. So the area of this part of the model is 48. Once we found both of those answers, we can add those two areas together. So 120 plus 48 equals 168. So the product of 28 times 6 is 168. So this method of breaking apart factors to multiply is called partial products multiplication. Now, let's look at the area model for 4 2/3 times 7. Think about how we just did 28 times 6 and see if you can use that to create friendlier numbers for this problem. Which factor in 4 2/3 times 7 would you want to break into friendlier numbers? You would want to break apart 4 2/3. So you separate the whole number from the fraction. So here I have an open area model for 4 2/3 times 7. Will the product of 4 2/3 times 7 be greater than or less than 4 2/3? It would be greater than because there are 7 groups of 4 2/3. What about, will the product of 4 2/3 times 7 be greater than 7? Yes, because there are 4 2/3 groups of 7. All right, now let's look at this model. The area of this section right here would be 4 times the 7 over here. So you would have 4 times 7 equals 28. Then you could take the area of the next rectangle here and you would be multiplying 2/3 times 7. If you remember, when we multiply a fraction by a whole number like this, we put that fraction over the number 1. The whole number becomes our numerator and 1 becomes the denominator. Then we multiply straight across, both the top and the bottom. So 2 times 7 is 14, and 3 times 1 is 3, so we get 14/3. We can rewrite that as a mixed number because I know that 3 goes into 14 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12. And then I would have 2 left over, so we'll make that into a fraction. So that becomes 4 2/3. So now we know the area of this section is 28, and the area of this section, just draw an area, is 4 2/3. So we're going to add those two areas together. 28 plus 4 2/3 equals 32 2/3. Remember that when you solve a whole number multiplication problem using partial products multiplication, you break apart each factor and multiply to find each partial product. You just solved 4 2/3 times 7 by breaking the factor 4 2/3 into two parts, 4 and 2/3. What partial products did we find when we solved 4 2/3 times 7? We found 4 times 7, or 28, and then we found 2/3 times 7, or 4 2/3. Using partial products is a strategy that also works for finding the product of mixed numbers. In this lesson, we're going to practice using area models and partial products to multiply mixed numbers. Now let's look at the problem 1 3/4 times 2 1/3. The problem has two mixed number factors. How could we represent this problem with an area model? We can break each factor into a whole number and a fraction. So go ahead and try to draw a rectangle with 4 sections and see if you can set it up properly. So you should have set up your problem to look like this. You break up 1 3/4 and break up the 2 1/3. Then you're going to find the partial products of 1 times 2 right here, which we know 1 times 2 is 2, equals 2. Then you're going to multiply 3/4 times 2. Once again, we're going to put that 2 over 1 because it's a whole number. Multiply straight across the top and we get 6. Straight across the bottom and we get 6/4. So we're going to put that in this square. Then here we're going to multiply 1 times 1/3. 1 times any number is that number, so we know the area of that section is going to be 1/3. And then last we have 1 times 1/3. I apologize, in this last box we have 3/4 times 1/3. I already have the fractions set up, so just multiply straight across the top. 3 times 1 is 3. 4 times 3 is 12. So the area of this box is 3/12. Now, once we've found all of those partial products, then we're going to have to add them all together. So we're going to add 6/4 plus 1/3 plus 3/12. Those are our fractions. We're going to start with those. We still have this 2 up here, but we'll wait on that. So to add these 3 fractions together, we need to have common denominators. So we're going to use the common denominator 12. So if we change the 4 to a 12, we multiplied 4 by 3. So we have to multiply our 6 by 3, which makes this 18. Here we multiplied the 3 by 4 to get 12, so we got to multiply our 1 by 4. And then this one stays the same. So now we can add these together. We know our denominator is going to be 12. 18 plus 4 is 22, plus 3 is 25. So we get the fraction 25/12. Then we tack on that 2, so we know our answer is 2 25/12. Or we can change that. We can change the 25/12 to 2 1/12, which gives us an answer of 4 1/12. 25 divided by 12 is 12 goes into 25 2 times. So it's going to give us 2 wholes to add to this 2, and then 1 left over. So our answer is 4 1/12. The other thing we can do to make sure we did this properly is do an estimate. You could estimate 1 3/4 as being 2, and 2 1/3 as being 2, and we know 2 times 2 is 4. Well, our answer, 4 1/12, is pretty close to that, so we know that's a reasonable answer. Okay, let's try this problem. 3 2/5 times 5 1/3. Once again, let's draw an area model here. So we'll draw our area model. We're going to break apart these two mixed numbers. So this one would be 3, and here's our 2/5. And this one here would be 5, and here's our 1/3. Then we're going to multiply for each section. This first square here, 3 times 5 we know is 15. So we know that the area of this square is 15. Then we have 2/3 times 5. Just going to write that down here. Remember, since it's times 5, we're going to put that 5 over 1 because it's a whole number. Multiply straight across. Our denominators, our numerators, 2 times 5 is 10. And then 5 times 1 is 5. So 10 divided by 5, we also know, is 2. So that tells us the area of this section is 2. Now we have to multiply our 3 up here and 1/3. 3 times 1/3. We're going to put that 3 over 1. Multiply straight across. So 3 times 1 is 3, and 1 times 3 is 3. So 3 over 3 is equal to 1. So we know the area of this section is 1. Then we have left 2/5 times 1/3. Multiply straight across. We're going to get 2, and 5 times 3 is 15ths. So this section here is 2/15. We have all 3 of our areas. We're going to add those all together. 15 plus 2 is 17, plus 1 is 18. So our answer is 18 and 2/15. Okay, let's try one more problem together. We have 4.5 times 5/6. So once again, we're going to draw our area model. We're going to break apart that first number. It's going to be 4, and then here's our 1/2. And then we just have a fraction over here that's 5/6. So 4 times 5/6. We're going to put that 4 over 1 because it's a whole number again. Multiply straight across. 4 times 5 is 20, and 1 times 6 is 6. So we're going to make that 26ths. And then we have 1/2 times 5/6. Multiply straight across again. 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 6 is 12. So this is going to be 5/12. So we have the area of each of these two rectangles, so now we need to add them together. So we're going to do 26 plus 5/12. We got to have a common denominator when we add. So let's use 12 for a common denominator. This one's already got a 12, so we have to change the 6 to 12, which means we multiplied 6 by 2 to get that. So that means we have to multiply 20 by 2, which would give us 40. Now we have common denominators, so we know our answer is going to have a 12 for the denominator. Add the numerators across. 40 plus 5 is 45, so our answer is 45/12. So if we change that to a mixed number, we know 45 divided by 12 is going to be 3. 3 times 12 is 36, which means we'll have 9 left over, so we'll make that the fraction 9/12. We can even reduce that more because 3 goes into both of those numbers. So our final answer is 3 3/4. Now I want you to look at the math journal pages that are in your module, math journal pages 223 or 233 and 234, and see if you can do those problems. Once you've attempted those, continue the video and I'll show you how to do each one. Here are the instructions for those problems. For problems 1 through 3, use the rectangle to make an area model, label the sides. Find and list the partial products. Label the partial products in the area model. Add the partial products to find your answer. You may need to rename fractions with a common denominator. Okay, number 1 is 3 1/8 times 4. So we're going to set up our area model. We're going to draw a line through our rectangle over here. we're going to split up that 3 1/8, so it's 3 1/8 over here, and then we're going to put our 4 here. So then we're going to find our partial products. We know 3 times 4 equals 12. So the area of this section is 12. And then we're going to do 1/8 times 4. Put that 4 over 1 since it's a whole number. Multiply straight across. 1 times 4 is 4. 8 times 1 is 8. We're going to make that 4/8. Then we're going to add our partial products together. We know that 12 plus 4/8 equals 12 4/8, or 12 1/2, because 4/8 is equal to 1/2. Number 2 is 2 3/5 times 1/4. Once again, we're going to draw our line to make our 2 rectangles here for our area model. We're going to break this apart. 2 3/5 across the top, and then on the side we're multiplying it by 1/4. Okay, so the first partial product, we're going to do 2 times 1/4. We use that whole number, we're going to put it over 1 again. Then we can multiply straight across. 2 times 1 is 2. 1 times 4 is 4. So our first partial product is 2/4. Then we're going to multiply 3/5 times 1/4. Multiply straight across. 3 times 1 is 3. 5 times 4 is 20. So our partial product here is 3/20. Then we're going to add together 2/4 and 3/20. So when we do that, we're going to have to find a common denominator. We can use 20. Change this to 20. We multiplied that 4 by 5 to get 20, so we have to multiply the top by 5, which 2 times 5 is 10. Now we can add because we have common denominators. 10 plus 3 is 13, so our answer is 13/20. Number 3 is 4 1/6 times 1 2/3. Once again, we're going to make our partial products over here with our area model. We have 2 mixed numbers, so we're going to break them both apart. So this will be 4, and this will be 1/6. This one will be 1, and this one will be 2/3. So we're going to start multiplying our partial products. First we have 4 times 1 equals 4. So this area here we know is 4. Then we have 1/6 times 1. Anything times 1 is that number. So we know this area is 1/6. Then we have 4 times 2/3. We know we're going to put that whole number over 1 over here. Then we can multiply straight across. 4 times 2 is 8. And 3 times 1 is 3. So the area of this square is 8/3. And then the one that we have left is going to be 1/6. Whoops. Times 2/3. Multiply straight across. 1 times 2 is 2. And 6 times 3 is 18. So 2/18 for that partial product. Then we're going to add all of those together. So we have the whole number 4 plus 1/6 plus 8/3 plus 2/18. So the common denominator that I see that would work for all 3 of those fractions is 18. So we're going to leave that last fraction alone. We multiply 6 by 3 to get 18. We have to multiply 1